Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the Christian Ferras edition on Deutsche Grammophon Eloquence, thanks to Cyrus in Australia. Yeah, the guy who really knows his stuff and produces these beautiful, sexy, well-curated boxes of great musicians, some of whom are in danger of being forgotten or ignored. Now, we have talked about Ferras. He was a fabulous violinist, a great violinist, is fine just about as any 20th century violinist could be who wasn't Heifetz. And he has a very nice discography here, actually, on 19 discs. Quite a bit of stuff. He was one of the few violinists who got along, or artists, soloists of any kind, who got along with Herbert von Karajan, which is saying a lot. It's actually very interesting. Karajan tended to get along with violinists. Think of his protégé-ship of Anna Sophie Mutter, because I think violins could fit more appropriately into his timbral predilections, his emphasis on string sonority, But Ferras was a little different from Mutter because he didn't get Ferras when he was like 12. He was already a fully formed artist, and they really were a marvelous combination in the limited amount of things that they did. And they're all in here, along with some duplication, which is quite fascinating. So let's go through this, shall we? I'm opening it up here. We get, of course, a beautiful booklet with an intelligent essay and a really sensible track listing, as is typical with Eloquence Productions. And then we get beautiful original jacket stuff. He began his life in the mono era and then finally got, the fabulous yellow marquee. When he was at DG, he was all at DG or Decca or someplace, some of this stuff. Yeah, he started at Decca. Anyway, let us look and see what we have, shall we? So it begins with some very interesting stuff here. Federico Elizalde, 1907 to 1979, his violin concerto with the London Symphony under Gaston Poulet. You're going to hear some very interesting repertoire here, particularly of the Iberian Peninsula type stuff. And then we've got Chrysler and Sarasate and Massenet and Fauré and Ravel stuff, including Tzigana, my most loathed piece of violin music, which he plays fabulously, by the way. This is the version with piano. Unfortunately, we get to hear it with orchestra too. So that's disc one. And it was recorded, it dates from the mono era, 1948. This goes all the way back to 48. But Ferras had a wonderful singing tone, a just enlivening sense of rhythm. He was a genuinely terrific artist. He really was. You hear it right from the beginning. So there you go. There you go. And you get a really interesting unknown violin concerto, too, on top of it. And here we have even more of that stuff. We have Rodrigo. Yay, Rodrigo, the Concerto d'Estio, with conducted with the Paris Conservatory Orchestra, conducted by Enescu, no less. I mean, isn't that cool? I love this. And then Ivan Semenov, another person you probably never heard of, I never did, 1917 to 1972, is double concerto for violin, piano, and orchestra with Ferras and Pierre Barbizet, who was always his accompanist and partner, with the Paris Conservatory Orchestra, conducted by the composer, no less. So these are fascinating, these early things that were never repeated or recorded, it seems, by anybody else. So they are sui generis and valuable for that. I'm not even going to get into like the style of the music particularly, because it's a Ferras box and you're going to get it for him. And then you can discover the music for yourself and have a good time with it. It's all quite listenable and very enjoyable, and some of it really may surprise you. Then we've got the Debussy Piano Sonata and the Fauré Violin Sonata number 2. It's a short disc. It's like 37 minutes long with Ferras and Barbizet, and a lovely performance of both. And we've got Chausson's Poème and, Ravel's Tzigane. Ooh, this time the orchestral one with the Orchestre Nationale de Belgique under George Sebastian. He was around back in those days doing things for Decca and various other people. And then Honegger's Sonata for Solo Violin. I love all of this interesting repertoire. I mean, that makes this so valuable. And that's exactly the kind of stuff that wasn't available for like a bazillion years until Cyrus over at Eloquence decided to put all this stuff together. Then we've got Bach's Sonata number 3 for violin and harpsichord with Céline Chaillet-Richter at the piano, not the harpsichord. And then Brandenburg Concerto number 5 at the triple concerto. Let's see, with Christian Ferras, Jean-Pierre Rampal, who was like 6 when this was done, and the same pianist with the Orchestre de l'Association des Concerts de Chambre de Paris under Enescu. I mean, this is I just chortle with delight because of this fabulous historical stuff that we get to hear. It's such a voyage of discovery. Such a wonderful artist. Now, for most of this time, Ferras was still in France. He was French, and he was still hanging out in Paris. This is before he bounced into Karajan. And we've got 2 Mozart violin sonatas with Ferras and Barbier. It's a 27-minute long disc. I mean, let Eloquence have its extra bucks for the short playing times. They deserve it because you get this wonderful production. It's the sonatas in A major, Kochel 305, and F major, Kochel 376. I mean, they're not Mozart's greatest chamber works, but they're charming, and that's nice. Okay, Brahms Violin Concerto, heavy-duty stuff. Yeah, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes standard repertoire. And the red meat for you red meat standard repertoire chompists. Yeah, and this is with the Wiener Philharmoniker, the Vienna Philharmonic under Schuricht. Wonderful disc, and he remade this with Karajan, so it's interesting to compare the two, which we will, not right this second, but momentarily. And we'll talk about that at the appropriate time. And it's a very good Brahms violin concerto. Don't worry, they're lovely. They really are. Okay. Oh yeah, Johann Friedrich Eck, violin concerto in E flat major, formerly attributed to Mozart. Yeah, Mozart, as we know, wrote 5 violin concertos, but in some circles he wrote 7, and 2 of them were not by Mozart. As it turned out, one of them was by Eck, Mr. Eck. And the Mozart 3rd Violin Concerto with the Stuttgart Chamber Orchestra under Karl Munchinger. Now, this 3rd Violin Concerto performance is important. It's beautiful because that middle movement of the 3rd Concerto is one of the most glorious melodies Mozart ever wrote. For me, it's a test of a violinist. That do-do-do, ya-da-da-da-dum-pa, ya-da-da-da-da-dum-pa. It's just the most beautiful, vocal, human, wonderful melody, and it's the one that all the period instrument people usually screw up because they don't understand that you need to use vibrato when you play a tune like that. And they're scrappy little instruments with their crappy little gut strings and awful little bow things. Terrible. It's a wonderful, wonderful example, not only of musicianship, but also good taste, because you don't want to slobber over it. You're not like a Romanian violinist at a cafe when you play that tune. It's a wonderful test, and it's a wonderful way to identify the personal tone and sound of a violinist. So I think, the essence of Ferras's art is in some way encapsulated in this slow movement of Mozart's 3rd Concerto. It's just so lovely. It really is. It's beyond beautiful. And now we're into the DG universe. The Brahms Violin Concerto with Karajan. Now, first of all, this is early Karajan, so the orchestral sound hasn't glopped up to the extent that it would, later on for, in the late 60s and 70s. This was recorded in 64. It's a little bit slower than the Schuricht. The Schuricht is a little livelier, a little bit more, just a touch more languorous and more legato, but there's no question that soloist and conductor were getting along very, very well during this period. And it's a beautiful account of this concerto, and so is the Schuricht, which is from 51. It's in mono. So the comparison is a lot of fun. And quite interesting and salutary, because the Vienna Philharmonic sounds like the Vienna Philharmonic, whereas Karajan's Berlin by 64, this is when he'd just done his Beethoven cycle. This was his first big assertion of the Karajan sound. And with Ferras, he found a soloist who he could display that and work with, and who, frankly, was an equal partner. and who had just as much say in the proceedings, I think. Just a lovely performance. Wonderful stuff. And there is more. Oh, so much more. There is the Sibelius, this famous recording of the Sibelius Concerto with Finlandia, a very, very fine recording. And, Karajan was a great Sibelian, and so this was kind of like epic making in its day, as a contrast to the famous Heifetz recordings of the Sibelius, which were the ones that put the thing on the map. And it's just wonderful. So we all know that. We talked about it extensively already, talking about Ferras and, there's some of his DG recordings, which were already released, by the way. Then we've got Schumann. Oh, this is great. You've got Violin Sonatas 1 and 2 and 3 Romances with Barbizet. Absolutely splendid. A little unusual in those days. I mean, the Schumann sonatas were not the most recorded things in the universe. And then, Franck and Lecoeur. Violin sonatas, beautiful, beautiful works. Lecoeur being, a composer who died terribly young, and he was very much in the Frankian mold. And we've got, this is with Ferras and Barbizet, of course, and a beautiful account of the Franck, which is, one of the greatest pieces in the history of sonatadom. And it's just lovely. Then we've got Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto with the Capriccio Italien. I like the fact that they keep the original couplings because it makes for a nice program. You can listen to the concerto and then the Capriccio Italien. They work wonderfully together with Karajan in Berlin. And Karajan was a great Tchaikovsky conductor, and Ferras plays the daylights out of it. And it's, just lovely. Absolutely lovely. What else have we got here? Oh, there's so much. Oh, this is fun. This is, I think, my favorite disc of weird stuff. You've got Serge Nig, who was a very interesting Spanish composer who deserves, I think, to get quite a bit more attention paid to him. This is his Violin Concerto number 1, 28 fun-filled minutes, along with Marius Constant, who wrote like the Twilight Zone theme and some other things. 24 preludes for orchestra. This is with the ORTF, Orchestre Philharmonique, under Charles Bruck. And it's on Deutsche Grammophon. Yes. Great. Bach. The Bach Violin Concertos. All 3 of them. Michael Schwalbe, the concertmaster of the Berlin Phil, participates in the double concerto with Berlin and Karajan. Now, it's Berlin and it's Karajan. It's probably some of his better Bach because the violinists are so great. And all he's doing is accompanying anyway. Let's not kid ourselves. There's only so much Karajan could do with these pieces. They are for the soloists. And what soloists they are. Then we've got the Beethoven Violin Concerto, a lovely performance of that. Absolutely beautiful. And I really prefer this to Karajan's later versions of the Beethoven with Anna Sophie Mutter and, good as she was or is. This is, I think, in a different league entirely. It's just terrific. I keep saying, it's great, it's terrific, it's wonderful. Well, it is. It's all just fun to listen to. The 3 Brahms Violin Sonatas with Ferras and Barbizet. Beautiful performance. And you also get the scherzo from the FAE Sonata that Brahms wrote collaboratively. And it's self-recommending. There, how's that? I don't have to go, it's great, it's fabulous. It's just self-recommending. And then we've got the Rendezvous Musical avec Christian Ferras. And you've got lots of little things here. You've got, the meditation from Thais, and some of this is, it's all it's not with Barbizet. It's with Jean-Claude Ambrosini. You've got Kreisler, Schumann, Schubert, Kreisler, Mendelssohn, Dinizu, the Horace staccato, that thing. Dvorak, Kreisler, Massenet, Chaminade, Fauré, Rimsky-Korsakov, Sarasate, Faya, Saint-Saëns, and Stravinsky. What a collection. I mean, every violinist has to do a Sniglet disc. There are actually 2 here. Here's this Sniglet disc, and then there is this Sniglet disc, disc 19, where it's got Air on a G string, violin favorites. And these are wonderful for showing off the skill and the personality of the violinist, of which Ferras had plenty. So we've got, let's see, Rameau, Tchaikovsky, Granados, Mendelssohn, Debussy, Dördler, Bach, Boccherini, Ravel, Dvorak, Beethoven, Albéniz, Schubert, and Kreisler again. So there you go. And this is with Shuko Iwasaki via piano and Ferras doing Ferras-like things. He was a Ferris wheel. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Okay. So there we go. That is the Christian Ferras box. Absolutely first-class musicianship. A beautiful production. something that you are definitely going to want to add to your collection. If I can close it so I can add it to my collection. There we go. And enough said. Wonderfulness incarnate. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you for joining me. Take care.